Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope all of you are doing well and in high spirits. My name is Afni and I'll be the moderator for today's event. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to welcome you to the Ice Ambassador Anything session with His Excellency Lambert Grijns, Ambassador of the Netherlands to Indonesia. Our event today is part of the Europe Virtual Talks, Road to Europe Day 2021, that we are holding throughout this week. Ladies and gentlemen, Europe Day is a celebration of peace and unity in Europe that is celebrated every 9th of May. Every year, the European Union institution in Europe and all its offices over the world organize a number of activities for people of all ages to mark the day and raise awareness about the EU. Despite not being able to celebrate Europe Day in a traditional physical manner, FPCI is delighted to work together with the delegation of the European Union in Jakarta in convening the Europe Virtual Talks Road to Europe Day 2021, starting from the 1st of May until the 8th of May. The series will act as a platform for the Indonesian public to directly interact and converse with ambassador or representative of the 10 European countries to gain further knowledge and insights about Europe, the EU, and its member states. So today, we are joined by His Excellency Ambassador Lambert Grijns. His Excellency has prepared a very special presentation for us and is ready to answer as many questions as he can from the YouTube live chat. And of course, we are also joined by students from FPCA chapters across Indonesia and the general public who are tuning in live on FPCI's YouTube channel. So thank you for participating and welcome to everybody. Before we move further, we would like to encourage all audience to stay tuned until the end of this virtual talk because we will be having a quiz where you can win fun prizes from the European Union. You can use your order confirmation number on your Eventbrite ticket to register for the quiz on Kahoot later on. So make sure to stay tuned for that. We also encourage you to share your moments with us from these virtual talks by tagging at FPC Indo and at uni_Eropa with using the hashtag EU4U and Europe Day 2021 on your social media posts. We also encourage you to ask the ambassador anything via our YouTube live chat box. Our committee will pick out the best questions and I'll be reading them out. Please remember to keep your questions positive, constructive, and concise. Now, let us begin our discussion today by watching a video from the Embassy of the Netherlands in Indonesia. Thank you. It's a wonderful video explaining about the Netherlands. Now, without further ado, I would like to invite Ambassador Lambert Grijns to deliver his remarks. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Alright, thank you very much, Mbak. Selamat siang, Bapak Ibu hadirin virtual yang saya hormati. Nama saya Lambert Grijns, saya Duta Besar Dubes Belanda di sini di Indonesia. Saya lahir dan besar di Indonesia, di Bogor, Jawa Barat. Dan tentu saja bangga sekali, senang sekali sekarang kembali ke Indonesia sebagai Duta Besar. Jadi, dan bagus sekali program ini, keren banget ya, terima kasih. Now, I will continue speaking in English. I hope you don't mind. If you have any problems or if you don't understand, tolong kasih tahu ya. So, my name is Lambert Grijns and I'm an urban planner by background. I specialize in urban planning, spatial planning, water management, but since many years now already at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But still, my background sometimes proves to be handy. Of course, living in Jakarta as an urban planner is a big challenge because I have so many ideas about how things could even further improve in the city. You may know that in the Netherlands we are very fond of bicycles. Everyone has a bicycle in the Netherlands, and we have got many ideas about how to further improve bicycle and cycling in Jakarta. Now, we started with this little video clip. And I like it because the video clip starts with basically explaining what are the main characteristics of the Dutch people, the DNA of the Dutch. And it starts with words like cooperation and working together, collaboration. Because, you know, the Netherlands is a small country and much of it, more than half of it, is below the sea level. So in former days, the Dutch, the farmers, what they did, they built a dike around a lake, around a piece of water. And then they put windmills on the dike to pump the water out of the lake. So by pumping the water out of the lake, they created, we call it a polder, they created new land which was being used by farmers. And now it's being used by cities mostly. But you could not do that alone. You could not do that yourself. So it was necessary for people already 700, 800 years ago to work together. So working together in the Netherlands is a means of survival. We have to work together. And until the day of today, you will see that what I'm just saying is the old-fashioned kind of gotong royong. We have to work together to survive as a small country. Nowadays, the Netherlands still is a small country, but a very big country in many respects. We have 17 million inhabitants. We have a very open economy. And you would be surprised to hear that, for instance, that we are the second biggest exporter of agricultural products in the world. So being a small country means at the same time you can be a big country. We're huge in terms of, for instance, logistics and transport, by far the biggest in Europe. We have the biggest seaport in Europe, the port of Rotterdam. We are a gateway to many countries, including Indonesia. I think most of Indonesian goods to Europe go through the Netherlands. The airport of Schiphol, the fourth biggest airport in Europe, and our transport and logistics sector is extremely big. But also think about new forms of transport. Data transport is extremely important for the Netherlands. We are the hub in Europe for all data which come and go through Europe. We've got big data centers in the Netherlands. And the percentage of internet usage in the Netherlands is one of the highest in the world. Think also about e-commerce and electronic banking. Almost 40% of all purchases by consumers in the Netherlands are done by e-commerce. So we don't use cash. I just came back from the Netherlands last weekend, and I've been in the Netherlands for, 5-6 weeks. And I did not once go to the ATM. I did not use cash money in the Netherlands. It's all digital money. So it says about a digitalization of our economy. Now, I don't want to speak too much because I want to hear your questions and to hear your comments, but maybe one more thing. Being a small country which comes from the battle with water, where we have to work together, makes us an innovative country. We have to be a very innovative country to survive. And we have to apply high technology. So we're creative, innovative, and we use high technology. At the same time, the flip side of development, and we are seeing now that today is pollution, is a high use of carbon energy. So one of our biggest challenges at the moment is to invest in a sustainable system, circular economy, where we use low carbon solutions. Maybe we could also discuss that, because I understand that this is also one of the main challenges Indonesia is focusing on. Anyway, maybe enough from my side at the moment. But so shall we? How are we going to arrange this? If there are questions, I will be very happy to answer.
Thank you, Ambassador, for your brief presentation about the Netherlands and Indonesia, a brief. And we are grateful that you come back to Indonesia, Ambassador. So now let's go ahead and dive into our question and answer session. I actually have received a couple of questions, but I would like again to remind everyone who watch these virtual talks to ask as many questions possible. And please remember to state your name and affiliation before submitting your question. All right, our first question, I'll pick the easiest question as a start. There is Fanny from Makassar, Ambassador. I believe she found it difficult to find a language course for Dutch. Ambassador, Ambassador, does the embassy have a language course? Where can I learn Dutch in eastern part of Indonesia, Ambassador?
Yeah, and I like the questions about language. I love language myself. I'm having Indonesian language classes myself every day. And of course, I love the similarities in language between Indonesian, Bahasa Indonesia, and Dutch. There's so many words in Bahasa Indonesia which come from Dutch, like losmen or stempel, or so many words. Also in Dutch, we have words like pisang or nasi goreng. All Dutch people know that. Pakaian, people know that in the Netherlands. So these are Indonesian words which have become part of the Netherlands, of the Dutch language. Now, learning Dutch is not easy. Like learning Indonesian maybe is not easy for Dutch people. So I've got two recommendations for you. One is we have our own Erasmus training center at the embassy. So at the embassy, there's a training center in Jakarta. But if you live in Sulawesi or in Eastern Indonesia, of course, it's not easy to go to Jakarta, but you can contact them. So the word is Erasmus Training Center, ETC, how they can help you in getting access to Dutch language lessons everywhere in Indonesia. There is also a small yayasan in Surabaya, which also provides language courses. And there, of course, you can follow proper Dutch language at the UI, at the Universitas Indonesia. So I think if you're in remote areas, the best thing for you to do is, like I'm doing also, is follow online lessons. But please contact the embassy. About maybe you can also share our contact details afterwards, so that people who have questions can write us and we can give you more detailed information.
Thank you, Ambassador. Fanny, you may contact the embassy for the arrangement of your course. And next, I received 3 questions from 3 people who asked the same questions related with COVID-19. There is Dita from East Java, Vita from Central Java, and Agracia from Jakarta. Their combined question would be, Ambassador, how is the situation lately in the Netherlands during this pandemic? Which field is the most affected in this situation, whether economics, politics, or others? And please also tell us about the education in the Netherlands during this pandemic time. Thank you. Please, Ambassador.
Yeah, I think that's a very important question because the pandemic is everywhere, and I think everywhere in the world we're struggling with the pandemic, and we are facing the question: okay, how should we go about it? And you see many different approaches between different countries. Even in Europe, we are one European Union, but even within the European Union, there are different approaches. Now, in the Netherlands, we have been hit very hard in the early beginning. That was 1 year ago, April 2020. And then there was a very strict lockdown. I think it was more strict in the Netherlands than it was here in Indonesia in those days. The result was quite positive because it went up very quickly and then it went down in July, August last year. But then the government decided to reopen the schools, universities, and in August, when people returned from holidays, the life started again like normal. There was hardly any COVID again last year in August. So people were very optimistic. So we all forgot about the precautionary measures. People didn't use masks. They didn't keep distance. So then what happened again in September and October, it went up again, and then again lockdown, and it went down. And then the third wave happened in February, March, April until today. So we are still in a high peak of epidemics, but there's a very positive development now that quite a large share of the population is now being vaccinated. And I will come back to that. Now, in the Netherlands, we have decided to keep the schools open. That's a very big difference with Indonesia. So for us, education is so important. We could not close the schools to a certain extent, especially the primary education, the SD, was kept open almost all the time. Only for a couple of weeks, when the peak was very high, the SD, the primary school was closed. But for the rest of the time, the primary schools remained open. And then the secondary education, the SMP, SMA, they were also kept open, but then with some restrictions, like 1 day on, 1 day off. And at universities, the students have had the most difficult time because most universities were closed, or they had, like 1 day a week or a couple of hours a week college. But what all these education institutes try to do is to link the people to their to the school or to the university, to make sure that people did not disappear. Because as a student or as a young person, you want to see your peers, you want to see your friends, you want to see your teacher, you want to be part of a group. So we try to do everything possible to keep the people in that group, even if there was no physical education every day, but at least once a day, at least once a week. Or like my youngest son, he had 3 hours a week physical education, but still that was for him enough to see his friends. Now, let me say a few words on vaccine. I think Indonesia is doing relatively well if you compare Indonesia to other countries in the region, like Philippines, Malaysia, other Asian countries. And the problem we have been facing, all of us, also European countries, is supply of vaccines. In the Netherlands, we were quite slow. We were quite late with our vaccines simply because we didn't have the vaccines. We couldn't buy them. And it took a while before we could have those vaccines, and then there were also some technical challenges. So it went quite slowly. Other countries have been more bold, have been bolder in achieving vaccines. But to be honest, I think some countries like European Union member states were a bit slow. Now it is going quite well. The vaccine campaign is going quite well. And our Minister of Health says that all inhabitants in the Netherlands, including the big Indonesian community in the Netherlands, above 80 years and older, will be vaccinated end of June, early July of this year. So maybe 2 more months and everyone will be vaccinated. Everyone who wants to have a vaccine, of course, because not everyone wants to be vaccinated. So these are a few words about the COVID pandemic. But of course, since this is such an important issue for all of us, and especially the relation with education, I really want to emphasize that for us, that in the Netherlands, we have been very happy that we could keep open the schools. Personally, I've had a couple of meetings with Indonesian representatives of schools and of governments, especially the local governments, to also discuss the reopening of the schools in Indonesia. And my personal conviction, it is very important that schools are reopened. Indonesia is a country rapidly developing, but development is so much dependent on education. And I'm absolutely impressed by the rapid development in Indonesia of the level of education. Look at, for instance, the use of English. When I grew up here in the 60s, no one spoke English. When I was here as a student in Bandung, I studied in Bandung. No one spoke English. I had to speak Indonesian myself. And now there are millions of young people whose English is really perfect. It's a nice example of the impact of education. And the whole foreign policy community of Indonesia, FPCI, is a nice, I think, example which shows what education can bring about. And so therefore I should say, I'm really advocating for the schools to be reopened in Indonesia, especially since younger children are hardly affected by the pandemic. If they get infected, they will, in most cases, will not feel anything. Even my children, I've got 3 children, they are 19 and 21 and 23. 21-year-old now is hit by corona. So she is in quarantine at her house. She can't smell, she can't taste anymore. But that's okay, and she will recover and she will survive. And for her, it's also important that she can be in touch with other students and can go to university. So sorry for this lengthy answer, but it's really an important subject. So if there are any other questions on COVID, I would be happy to answer them.
Indeed, Ambassador, it's very interesting. Before I go to the next question, I actually have a follow-up question on that interesting part that Indonesia might learn from the Netherlands, right? How could the Netherlands keep the schools open while at the same time trying to reduce the number of COVID cases? If you have some lesson learned that you can share with us, Indonesian, perhaps, Ambassador, please.
Yeah, that is a very good question. And let me first say that we are not doing much better in the Netherlands than in many other countries. I don't want to be here the one who is teaching someone else, because we have made many mistakes ourselves. And I think in the Netherlands, people are not different from Indonesia, that people want to meet other people, especially young people. They want to, stay together, and they are not so disciplined maybe when it comes to the COVID health restrictions. Now, if you look at our lessons learned, what made our campaign successful, right? I think there are a few lessons learned. In the first place, especially in the beginning, everyone in the Netherlands was convinced that something very seriously was happening. Everyone. I told you about my children. They were watching the daily, or it was weekly, the weekly press conferences by the Prime Minister. Normally, the children their age or young students wouldn't be very much interested in the Prime Minister, bosan aja ya. Tapi now they were watching those press conferences every week. It means that everyone in the Netherlands was aware something seriously is happening here. That's one. And it was also because everyone in the government, everyone in public figures was supporting that agenda. So there were no people who were denying or who were kind of saying, well, it is hoax or it is fake news or whatever. If you look at the countries where government leaders have said that, like Brazil, you see what is the impact. I think Brazil is one of the worst performers in terms of the COVID pandemic, simply because they have a government leader which is still denying the importance of COVID. Another lesson learned is testing. And that's something I'm a bit surprised about in Indonesia. The testing capacity in Indonesia is one of the lowest amongst the middle-income countries. It's very low in Indonesia, really very, very low. Compare the testing capacity, the tests which are being taken in Indonesia with the tests taken in many other middle-income countries. That's a significant difference. Now, Indonesia is quite good, I think, and that's a lesson learned which we can draw from Indonesia. Indonesia has been very good in rapid tests, like the rapid antigen tests, which you are using now. If you want to board a train, or if you want to if I want to meet a minister or I have a meeting, I have to take the rapid test before. The Netherlands was very slow in that. So the Netherlands is very good in the PCR tests, which Indonesia, I think, is not very good at, to be honest. Indonesia is very good in introducing rapid tests, which we are not very good at. So we can learn from each other. At the moment, there's a big debate in the Netherlands what to do with that rapid tests. For instance, can we have music festivals? Everyone in the Netherlands wants to have music festivals, the big festivals. It was such a popular thing to do for young people to go, or either older people to go to festivals, having all these the bands or DJs with 50,000 people at the same place. Everyone wants to have those festivals back. Okay, can we allow or can we ask people who want to be part of that festival to take the rapid test before? And who should pay for that rapid test? Right? Now, the government wants to raise it would be 10,000 rupiah price for the rapid test. Sorry, 100,000 rupiah. So it's not that cheap. 100,000 rupiah for the rapid test. But our parliament yesterday said, no, it should be free of charge for everyone. So, but of course, someone has to pay for it, right? So, so we are having those discussions at the moment, and it means that as of July, August, we will be able to organize those big events, sports matches, football, music, festivals, etc.
Thank you for your presentation, Ambassador. Now we are moving to a little bit about your personal story. It's Putri Amanda from Hasanuddin University. Ambassador, was the first time coming to Indonesia as an ambassador hard for you? What difficult things did you face at the moment, and how did you deal with them? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. And yeah, of course, well, I was born and I grew up in Indonesia, so it is very special for me to be back here. Actually, I was born in the 1960s, which was with Pak Sukarno, and I remember those. I was a little boy, but I remember those days and how people talked about Bung Karno and his popularity. But Indonesia was a very, very poor country in those days. Very poor. I remember that also we ate nasi putih dan ikan teri. That was it. We didn't have much more than that. And at a given point, there even was no rice available anymore. You cannot imagine, but there was no rice in Indonesia. The country was so poor, there was a lack of rice, so we had to eat bulgur. And then you see from the 70s and 80s, Indonesian economy went up. And my most positive experience since I've arrived here as an ambassador, as I said, is the level of education. I'm really very, very positively surprised and impressed by the level of education of so many young people. At the same time, what I also see is the differences between the poor people and the rich people, the difference between the countryside and the city. Living in Jakarta and in the bubble here, not far from Jalan Tamrin, well, okay, you think this is a very developed country, but if you move out of Jakarta or out of the bigger cities, you will see that Indonesia hasn't developed very much. So the differences between the rich and the poor are quite substantial here. Personally, what I like most about Indonesia is the people. Of course, I love the people. It has been a bit of a difficult time also for me as a diplomat because of COVID. I love to speak to people, and we could normally have this discussion, for instance, in a group, in a room, and then we have the questions and answers, and afterwards there will be makanan, and we will always have something to eat and to drink, and it will be rame, and we would chat, and I will give you my business card, and I will get a phone call from someone the next day. Okay, shall we have coffee? And that is the kind of exchange which I really miss, because in the end, being here as a person, I'm not only an institution as an ambassador, but I'm also a person. And as a person, I would love to communicate with you directly instead of looking at a screen. At the same time, I had the opportunity to travel a bit, not so much as I wanted to, because I really, really would like to travel to the whole of Indonesia. At the same time, I know that I have to be patient, and after a while, I will be able to visit you. So send me your address, and I will visit you, even where you are in Sumatra or Kalimantan or Sumbawa. I want to see you guys and visit you wherever you are.
Thank you, Ambassador. The next question will be so much related with your expertise as an urban planner. It's from Fatima. She is based in Padang, West Sumatra. Hello, Ambassador. As we all know that the Netherlands is famous for its excellent water management and water-sensitive urban planning, especially in cities such as Amsterdam. Right now, Jakarta is facing serious threats of flooding, sinking, and rising sea levels. What do you think we can learn or copy from the Netherlands to help reduce this threat? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And I love Padang, by the way, also the food. Yeah, the water management issue, of course, is a big issue. I told you I've been studying also water management. Actually, I worked for 4 years on a PhD, which I never finished, to be honest, on water management. And there's much to be said on that. I think if you look at the city of Jakarta, there are different factors together which play a role. One important factor, well, of course, we have to face the truth that the city was built on on weak soil. It's not a rocky soil, but it's a weak soil. We have that problem in the Netherlands. Most of the Netherlands is built on peat land, and if you drain the water from peatland, the surface of peatland will go down. So many places in the Netherlands every day are going down. We are sinking slowly because we are pumping water from the polders I mentioned earlier. And by pumping water from peatland, the land, the soil will shrink with peat. And to a certain extent, the same is happening in Jakarta. But the underlying problem in Jakarta is that people here, they take their drinking water from the underground water resources instead of having the drinking water coming from the mountains. For instance, when I came to live here, I also asked, okay, where does my water come from? Is it, the leading? That's a Dutch word, leading. Is it from the water pipe system, the water supply system? He said, no, Pa, you got a pump in your garden and you're pumping water from your garden, from the soil, from the deep soil. That's one of the things which need to change for Jakarta to make sure that the city is not sinking anymore. Because as people keep on pumping water from the underground water resources, the soil will shrink and the city will sink. But of course, there are many other elements here, and it's not as easy because the water management problem of Jakarta, of course, has a long history. One thing is water, drinking water. The other thing is the banjirs. The banjirs, you have to look at the total water shed, the total river basin. What's happening up in Bogor, what's happening up in the upstream areas near the Puncak. If there more and more forests are being cut, or like in the Puncak area, you see, that's one of the things which breaks my heart. In the past, the Puncak was very green, you had the green tea, the tea plantations, and it was fresh and it was chilly. If you go to the Puncak now, I see houses everywhere. And it means if it's raining there, the water, because of the roofs of the houses and all the asphalt, the water will be discharged much more quickly. So urbanization everywhere and cutting forests means that the water will be discharged more quickly, which means that the banjirs in Jakarta will also be, the downstream in Jakarta will also be higher. Now, another problem is pollution. Garbage. So if people put their garbage in the river, it will block the discharge of water. So I live in Menteng in Jakarta, but if I go to Cikini, for instance, next door, I like to go by my bicycle. Being Dutch, I always go by bicycle. And to Cikini, I see the Ciliwung River. And then the people who live near the Ciliwung River, they throw their basket with garbage in the Ciliwung, langsung di. Now, and yeah, if people continue doing that, the rivers will be blocked by garbage. So you see, these are, I just mentioned a couple of examples, but these are all, developments which make that it is hard for the government to stop the water management problems in Jakarta. I think there's a responsibility for the city government. I think there's also a responsibility for the people who live in the city. And I think there's a responsibility of other governments, not in Jakarta, but at the upstream locations, to take their responsibility. And then the final very important player is the private sector, especially if you look at the large-scale water extraction. So they take large-scale water volumes from the subterranean water reservoirs. And they pollute. There's a lot of pollution, and not small-scale pollution, but a large-scale pollution with chemical substances, for instance, or heavy metals. We have had the same in the Netherlands, and it was a very big problem in the 60s and the 70s. The rivers in the Netherlands were black. They were dead. There was no fish anymore in it. And only since the 80s and the 90s of the last century, we slowly managed to, by talking to the chemical industry, by talking to the big factories, to make sure that they would not discharge their polluted material directly into the river, but that they had to clean their wastewater first, or have it sent to the wastewater management treatment plant before it could be discharged. So now if you go to a wastewater management plant in the Netherlands, the dirty water comes in, and at the end it's very clean water. You can even drink it. I did once. It's very funny. At the end of the pipe, you can drink the water from the wastewater management treatment plant.
Thank you, Ambassador, for sharing. Now we have Osvaldo from Papua. He opened his question by saying thank you to the Netherlands for the development in the Merauke. His question is, what are the sectors that the Netherlands are interested to work with in Indonesia and Papua especially? Thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you for that question from Papua. It's one of the regions I really would love to go. It's quite far, to be honest, but I really love to go there. And maybe one day we can meet in Papua. We have very good cooperation between the Netherlands and Indonesia on many fields. Let me start by the economic, the trade and investment field. We are one of the biggest investors, one of the biggest foreign investors in Indonesia. I think traditionally it has been Singapore, maybe Malaysia, Japan, Korea, which are big investors in Indonesia, but then comes the Netherlands. So we are, I think, the 5th or the 6th biggest investor. And it's really big because I think the Dutch investments of companies foreign Dutch companies in Indonesia are almost the same as the total investments from the United States, from Australia, from Germany, and from UK. So if you add the investments from those 4 countries, it's the same amount as what we are investing from the Netherlands in Indonesia. And these are big companies. Think about Philips. Philips Lighting, is now called Signify. Also, you know the Philips rice cookers, or all the kind of the household equipment from Philips. There's maybe Super Indo, supermarket chain. It's Dutch. There are many Dutch companies here. Unilever is a big company, etc. And it's important because these companies, they invest and they generate employment. So there are thousands, tens of thousands of jobs thanks to the investment by Dutch companies. And if a Dutch company invests, it's not just hit and run, or make your profit and then leave again. Dutch companies generally are known for their long-term corporate vision, so they like to be there for the long term. They're also strong on their corporate social responsibility, which means that generally a Dutch company would pay better wages and would have a better social security system in place, and a pension system, and health facilities, no child labor. And that Dutch company is actually supposed, also by our own government, to behave properly when it comes to sustainability. So you may expect a Dutch company to be respecting environmental laws. That on the investment side. On trade, Indonesia is exporting more to the Netherlands than the Netherlands to Indonesia. As an ambassador, I would like to see that the other way around, but I have to respect that Indonesia is a very strong exporter, agricultural goods, but also textiles, shoes. Think about I forgot the name, but like small scale household articles, etc. And it all goes to Rotterdam Harbor or to Schiphol Airport, Amsterdam. That's on trade and investment. But of course, there are many, many other sectors where we work together, where we share interest, or where we have expertise from the Netherlands or expertise from Indonesia. Now with COVID, there's a strong impulse for cooperation on health. So you see that universities from the Netherlands and hospitals and medical research centers from the Netherlands are working more closely with their Indonesian colleagues. So health, we see a very strong interest from Indonesia on agriculture. Think about the kelapa sawit problem. Kelapa sawit is it's not very efficient. So we all know the criticism about kelapa sawit, but one of the solutions would be to make the existing kelapa sawit plantations more efficient. So you don't need to expand the service of palm oil plantations, but make your existing palm oil plantations more efficient and with a higher yield per hectare or per square meter. So that's where typically Dutch expertise could come in. The other, I told you, the Netherlands is the second biggest exporter worldwide of agricultural products, and we are a very small country. How is that possible? So we can share expertise on how you can improve the efficiency and the effectiveness of your agricultural system, especially horticulture. What is it, sayuran, near the cities. The people in the cities, they consume a lot, and they want to have good quality, and they want to have clean. Clean products which are produced in a sustainable way. So that's on agriculture. A completely different point of interest is water management. There are a lot of water management companies from the Netherlands here. I think also about dredging, circular economy. So how can you reuse and recycle your goods? Waste management, how to make energy from waste plants, renewable energy. There's Dutch investments in geothermal capacity building. Gunung Salak, for instance, here next door near Jakarta, there's a geothermal plant. There's a lot of capacity for geothermal energy generation in Indonesia with Dutch expertise. Solar power, wind energy. Of course, we have a lot of wind in the Netherlands, and we have a lot of windmills. So I think we are experts on wind energy, but also something like, it's not very commonly known, but something like tidal energy. So what is the rise of the tide of the sea goes up and down. You can use that for creating energy. For instance, building a bridge between two islands, have generators built in that place, and the tide goes that way, and then the next time it goes back again. So that kind of energy, we are building now a project near Flores. There's renewable energy. Now I can go on the economic sectors, but maybe I want to shift to two other themes where we have a very strong cooperation. One is education and research. There are literally thousands of Indonesian students going every year to the Netherlands. I know that's one of your quiz questions, so I should not say too much about it. But there are many Indonesian students going to the Netherlands every year. Actually, even more than the answer of the quiz says. So that's one thing I can already say. Because the education in the Netherlands is English. Almost everything is in English. It's relatively cheap and it's good quality. And you have Indonesian restaurants everywhere in the Netherlands. There are toko. You can buy your bumbu, whatever, fresh in the Netherlands. And there's also a lot of exchange with Indonesia. I know there are also quite a few Dutch students who are studying here in Indonesia. Like I also went to Bandung as a student. And the third thing I want to say is culture. At the embassy, we have the Erasmus House. It's a cultural center. Now with COVID, it is closed, but at the same time we reopened and we call it the Erasmus Huis. So if you go to the website, you Google electronic what did happen? Erasmus Huis, you will find it. And it's very nice because they have a lot on offer in terms of music and dance, all kind of shows. At the embassy, we have a huge library. For those of you who speak Dutch or who are learning Dutch, please go to see us at the library. We are now trying to reopen the library with strict COVID measures. And there's the Erasmus House also is a platform for political debate. So we have discussions, for instance, about freedom of press or about, I don't know what, sustainability issues. So we are very proud of having that available. So I would say economy, sustainability, climate change, education, research, and culture as just a few examples of the sectors where we are working very, very closely.
Thank you, Ambassador. Yes. Next, I will still read out a question related with economic. Now we have someone from the North Sulawesi. It's Ferdi. He is asking, after organizing an economic mission in the North Sumatra, will there be another organized in North Sulawesi, Ambassador?
Can you repeat that question? I didn't get it.
After organizing an economic mission in North Sumatra, will there be another one organized in North Sulawesi? Okay,
that's a good question. Yes, it's true. We are at the moment, we are quite busy in organizing an economic mission for North Sumatra. It's actually quite successful. And we are doing that because we think there's a lot of potential, not only in the, so to say, in the areas which are already quite known, Jakarta, Jawa Barat, Surabaya, but also outside of the center. It's also part of the Indonesian government's policy, right? Pak Jokowi himself, he wants also to attract investors to other parts of Indonesia. So yes, I very much agree with the suggestion to have economic missions as well to other parts of Indonesia. Now, north of Sulawesi, I've been there myself some years ago. I love it. For instance, tourism would be definitely a sector which would be, I think, very attractive for the north of Sumatra. But normally what would help is if there's a specific sector or a port development or agricultural development or tourism, as I said, or you need to have 2 or 3 or 4 companies which together are interested in a specific sector and in a specific region. Because organizing just a mission to somewhere, be it North Sulawesi or be it one of the smaller islands, it's a bit of a risk. The missions are quite expensive. So we need to have a good reason. Why should we go to North Sulawesi? If you have good ideas, and if you can convince me to go to North Sulawesi, I will go to see you. And we will bring a lot of companies.
Thank you, Ambassador. Freddy better convince you on that. And now we would love to hear from you about history. There is a question from Gabriel. He's based in Jakarta. Ambassador, what efforts have been made or will be made to preserve our history together? Are there any collaboration between Dutch and Indonesian museums? Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of cooperation between the museums. I'm not an expert on that, but it's logical because of many reasons, especially of the history. You will see that there's a lot of Indonesian colonial art in the Netherlands. Actually, just half a year ago, the Dutch Minister for Culture, she proposed to Parliament to return all the colonial art, which is still in the Netherlands, to return that to Indonesia. So we want to come to terms with our own colonial past, and this is one of the measures. So we have offered to the Indonesian government to return everything which you will see in the Netherlands museums, which was taken from Indonesia. Some of the art was looted, it was simply raw. Some was bought, so we paid for it. Some was received as a gift. But we don't make a difference between them. In principle, we say, okay, the art should belong in Indonesia. But the Indonesian museums, they said, okay, well, thank you, but we might probably be more interested in some articles, some art objects, and not in everything, because it's really thousands of articles. So we are now in that discussion, but in principle, I think it's good for you to know that there's this willingness from the Dutch government to return art which is in the Netherlands. Now, because of the knowledge and expertise which has existed in the Netherlands on Indonesia for such a long time, there's automatically a lot of cooperation between Indonesian scholars and Indonesian universities, Indonesian museums on the one hand, and Dutch museums and universities on the other hand. It's not only about art and what you would see in a museum, so collections. It is also, for instance, about language. I told you I'm having Indonesian language classes every day, and just this morning my teacher, she's from Jogja, she said, kakak saya sekarang di Leiden. So she said her older sibling is in Leiden. So I asked, what is your older brother or sister doing in Leiden? Leiden is one of the older university cities in Indonesia, which used to have a lot of knowledge about Indonesia. She said, my kakak saya, she's studying Old Javanese. So I said, why are you studying Javanese in Belanda? Yeah, so it doesn't make sense, but it says something about the knowledge and expertise which still exists in the Netherlands about a lot of what's happening in Indonesia. Cooperation between museums is very common. We have a memorandum of understanding between the two governments, between the Indonesian government with the Kemdikbud on the one hand, and the Dutch Ministry of Culture on the other hand, on cooperation between museums. There's training for museum staff from Indonesia, training in the Netherlands. I know that Dutch museum staff in the Netherlands, like in Leiden, is very knowledgeable about Indonesia. Last year, when the Dutch king and the Dutch queen were here in Indonesia, there was the return of the Kris Pusaka of Diponegoro, which came from a Dutch museum, and it was a nice symbolic gesture to have the Kris returned to Indonesia, where it belongs. But that project was the result of a long search and long cooperation between museums in Indonesia and the Netherlands, and also the Indonesian embassy played a very important role there. So yes, cooperation between museums, very important, and we're also very much willing to support Indonesian museums in their development.
Thank you, Ambassador. There's Laila from Yogyakarta. She is still wondering about her personal story. What is the most remarkable or major change of Indonesia compared to your childhood times here?
The most remarkable development in Indonesia compared to?
Remarkable or major changes compared to your childhood times in Indonesia.
Yeah, there are so many. So many. Well, let me start with the positive things, which I really just really seen that the MTR in Jakarta. So the fact that there's a metro and Jakarta is really not as much anymore as it used to be. So there are some very visual, very visible and important infrastructural works in Indonesia. The toll roads. The only road I used to know was from Jakarta to Bogor, Jakarta to Bandung. You had to take the old road. It was horrible. So now you take the toll road, and it's a matter of minutes to get to Bogor now. So the infrastructural development has been very impressive. I already talked about education, I think, which is also very impressive. But one thing which you cannot see, because it's not a physical thing, but which you can, how should I say, which you can learn if you are here, it has to do with self-consciousness, with consciousness of Indonesian people. I've seen that, for instance, when I was negotiating as a diplomat in a different position in New York at the United Nations or in Geneva, that Indonesia is getting more consciousness and has more confidence than before. Indonesia is a big country with 270 million people, and whereas in the past Indonesia maybe used to punch below its weight, I now see that there's more confidence and more. I think Indonesia is using its international power more according to its weight, which I think is a good development because we want to hear the Indonesian voice. Indonesian voice, which is important when it is a moderate country. Indonesian government is promoting the moderate Islam, a moderate religion. It has a moderate position in the Indo-Pacific. Indonesia is always saying it wants to be not to be one special friend of China or United States or Russia or Europe. It wants to be an independent and autonomous player in the region, which is a development which we really want to support because we think it's important to have different players, big major players in Asia and not only one. So maybe that's the development which is maybe most remarkable over the last year, that Indonesia has become a major international power. The initiative by Bu Menlu to organize the special summit on Myanmar is quite remarkable. I don't know whether Indonesia would have done that some years ago, but now Indonesia feels strong enough to take the risk of organizing that summit because you never know whether it will be, a success or not a success. Indonesia took the risk. They are strong enough to convince other countries to participate in the summit. So yes, confidence and becoming a major player in the region probably is one of the most important changes.
Thank you, Ambassador. We have Pandu from Jakarta. What is the current stance of the Dutch public regarding nuclear power as a clean source of energy, Ambassador?
I really love that question because it's rapidly changing. To be honest, as a student, I was at a large demonstration in Amsterdam with hundreds of thousands of other young people, and we all wore the little, you remember we had buttons in those days, the button, and it says nuclear energy, no thank you. So we still are, I think, mostly against the use of nuclear energy. Most people are against the use of nuclear energy. We have two very small nuclear power plants, but they are more for research purposes and not to generate a lot of energy. However, there's a huge debate in the Netherlands, like in other European countries, on the question, how can we get rid of fossil fuels? So we want to reduce the use of oil and gas. And well, coal, like Indonesia is using a lot of coal, is by far the worst pollutant. Of course, coal should be stopped the first. Instead, Indonesia is investing a lot of money in new coal-fired power plants. Something to think about. But it's easy to say, okay, we have to stop all this. But it's more difficult to say, okay, if you stop the use of fossil fuels, what is the alternative? And in the Netherlands, we are building like mad. Investing in wind energy. So there are these huge wind parks. We call it a wind park in the sea, so offshore, but also on land. If you go by car from The Hague, where I live, or from Amsterdam to the north of the Netherlands, you will literally see hundreds of windmills. but we have a lot of wind in the Netherlands, unlike in Indonesia. Solar energy, you will see many houses, individual houses with solar panels on their roofs. Most new, well, I think almost all houses which are being built, constructed in the Netherlands now are either how do you say that, energy climate neutral, that's how we call it, climate neutral. So a new house being built in the Netherlands doesn't use more energy than it produces, because there will be solar panels on top, and there might be some very sustainable energy system in the garden, like use, for instance, of earth energy, earth warmth. So they're climate neutral. So the way of constructing houses now is well, basically doesn't require extra energy, but still it's not enough. It's not enough. So we might need nuclear energy as well. Now the Netherlands is a very small country, very densely populated country. So we know that the risks of building nuclear energy power plants in a small, highly populated country are high. So we should be very careful by taking the decision. That's one. The other thing is nuclear energy is expensive to invest in, and it takes a lot of time, 20 to 30 years before you have your nuclear power plant ready. So a decision taken now will only result in energy 20 or 30 years from now. There's now a new tendency of building smaller scale, easy nuclear power plants. It's very interesting. They can be finished in 4 or 5 years' time. And it's something to watch. They're small scale, but the big advantage is that they can generate energy within 4 or 5 years after the decision to build them. And then, of course, the main question is what to do with the debris, with the highly radioactive waste, which will result. There is no solution yet for that. Some countries put that in deep ground cells, like underground caves or whatever. But more in general, I think the position towards nuclear energy in the Netherlands is slowly changing towards a more positive decision, since we accept that we have to change, we have to shift from oil and gas and coal to more sustainable sources of energy. And I'm very curious to see what will happen in Indonesia on that issue.
Thank you, Ambassador. I still have more than 10 questions in my list, but I will
be very short in my answers this time.
I will give to you only the last 2 questions, since
okay.
We still finish at 3:15. The second last question is from Makassar, Alif, still about education. Ambassador, would we see an expansion of Dutch-Indonesian cooperation in the area of higher education? Thank you.
I think we are at a very high level at the moment. So to be honest, I think there are only 2 countries with a very high amount of Indonesian students, which is Germany and the Netherlands. We're very proud of that. We're very happy with Indonesian students. So you're most welcome to the Netherlands. Personally, I'd like to see more Dutch students going to Indonesia. So I hope that after the COVID, when traveling will be possible, we will still have that opportunity to make it more intensive. One thing I'd like to see changing, and that's in response to your question, maybe not more students, because we have already quite a few students, but a higher quality of students. So we are in the Netherlands, and I told you in the beginning, we are a highly innovative country. We are aiming at the highest level of technology. So we are really very eager to receive top skill Indonesian students. If you're good and if you can make it in the Netherlands education system, and if you have high figures, and if your exam is with good results, you're happy to stay in the Netherlands, because we need well-qualified, skilled foreign migrant workers. So we have a special system for people who are good to stay in the Netherlands to can get a job. So, but quality for us might be more important in the future than quantity. So if you're good, you're welcome. But too many people who don't have sufficient background skills, please take another year to prepare your studies before you go to the Netherlands, because we are especially interested in quality.
Thank you, Ambassador. I will take my privilege as the moderator to ask you the last question.
Okay,
Since
I'm
we are
curious.
celebrating the Europe Day, is there any special celebration of the day in the Netherlands? And what does Europe mean to you personally, Ambassador? Please.
Okay, that's a nice question to end with, because Europe is everything for us. And I don't say that because it's Europe Day. It's really, Europe is everything for us. And I think most Dutch people, most European people, European Union member states, don't realize that. But so much of our wealth in the Netherlands is dependent on the European Union. So much of our social structure in the Netherlands is dependent on the European Union. Also in terms of norms and values, it's dependent on what we are doing with the European Union. Even peace and security in the Netherlands and in Europe, we have that thanks to the European Union. Don't forget that the European Union actually was the response to the question, okay, what should we do with Germany after the Second World War? And instead of continuing, fighting and being very suspicious to each other, we decided in Europe, let's bring all these countries together and make these countries economically, socially, politically dependent from each other and make a union. That was so the peace and security was the main idea behind the European Union. And it has worked out quite well. What you may see, maybe from the outside, is that they all 27 countries are struggling. There's the Brexit, but we should not forget that the European Union has brought us a lot of advantages, huge advantages, especially for the smaller countries, such as the Netherlands, with a very open economy. Most of our exports go to Germany and to Belgium. The fact that we can export and import and send people everywhere within the European Union without paying taxes, without having to go through borders. I can step in my car in Amsterdam and I can drive all the way down to, wherever, Hungary, without crossing borders. Isn't that amazing? And I can send goods everywhere. I can find a job. There are Romanian or Bulgarian or Polish people working in the Netherlands. They are much better skilled than, for instance, than their Dutch colleagues in specific sectors. So the dynamics of the European Union is absolutely fascinating. And again, I think both politically and economically and in social terms, we are very happy that we are having the European Union. And I'm very, very, very proud of that.
Thank you, Ambassador. Okay, I'm sure everyone still has so many questions, but due to time constraints, we cannot take them all. And I'd like to give a big thank you to Ambassador Lambert Grijns for answering so many questions today, and to all the audience for participating. It was a very insightful discussion, and I believe that all of us here have learned a lot today. Before we close, we have actually prepared a fun quiz for the audience. And if you answer the questions correctly and quickly, you will be receiving a goodie bag with cool gifts and prizes. Ambassador Lambert, you are most welcome to stay, but you are also welcome to leave if you have another agenda after this. Would you like to stay, Ambassador?
I'd love to stay forever with you because I love the FPCI. I love all these people behind it. You're a wonderful organization. I've attended a couple of meetings with FPCI. You guys are doing great work. And I know that all these thousands of mostly young people who are supporting your organization, each and every one of you, I really want to thank you, want to congratulate you for being so actively involved in foreign policies. Please don't hesitate to contact us as an embassy. I can't write on the screen right now, but you can find us at our website. Don't hesitate, send me a question or whatever you want to do with cooperation. And I promise you, whenever we can have a cup of coffee after the COVID restrictions have been lifted, please come to see us at the embassy. And I would love to, maybe we can repeat this again in a physical manner at the embassy with a smaller group of people, because we really want to keep in touch with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ambassador. Okay. We love having you as our speaker today, and we hope to see you again in the future again.
Yeah,
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Ambassador. Ladies and bye-bye. Ladies and gentlemen, for our quiz today, we will be using the platform Kahoot. It is very easy, so let me just read out the instruction before we start. Please use a second screen or second device and do not close your YouTube tab. To join the game, open another tab and go to www.kahoot.it. Make sure that's India Tango, not India Delta. Enter the game pin which is displayed on your screen. The game pin for today's game is 9134417. Please use your order confirmation number as the nickname. The order confirmation number can be found on your ticket in the email sent to you by Eventbrite. We highly suggest focusing your attention on the quiz instead of the YouTube live stream, as there might be a slight delay on YouTube. At the end of the Kahoot quiz, there will be 3 winners that will get prizes from the European Union. So if you were one of the winners, make sure to take a screenshot as a proof of winning. Lastly, please contact our staff immediately after the quiz to claim your prizes by sending a direct message to @FPCIndo on Instagram, providing your personal details and a screenshot of your Kahoot. We will give some more time to wait for more players. Again, please use your order confirmation number instead of your real name. We will give some time for people to join. Okay, I think we can start. The first question. How many kilometers of bike lanes can you find in the Netherlands? Is it 10,000, 22,000, 35,000, or 100,000? Yes, more and more people answered. 3 seconds left. And the answer is 35,000. Congratulations. Is it true or false questions? Dutchies are the tallest people in the world. Men are on average 183.4 centimeter and women 176 centimeter. Is it true or false? 2 seconds left. Yes, most of the people answered right. The next question is, the Netherlands is the second exporter of agricultural products in the world. Which of the companies below is not Dutch? Is it Vision Pack, is it East West Seeds, or Cargill? 5 seconds left. And the right answer is Cargill. Next questions. How many Indonesians study in the Netherlands on a yearly basis? We receive a lot of questions on education, and I'm sure this must be an easy question. Is it 500, 1,000, or 2,800? Yes, it's 2,800. Next question. The Netherlands is famous for its DJs. Who of the DJs mentioned below is not Dutch? Is it Tiesto, Armin van Buuren, Ferry Corsten, or the three of them are all Dutch? 3 seconds left. They are all Dutch. Next, which of the invention below is not Dutch? The World Wide Web, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or Fairtrade? 5 seconds left. The second last question. Erasmus, who is the cultural center at the premises of the embassy? How many years has it been existing in Jakarta? Is it 10 years, 25 years, 51 years, or 98 years? 5 seconds left. And it's 51 years. The last question is, Ambassador Lambert Grijns said that Indonesians are more flexible, better able to put their own interests aside for the common good. Is it true or false? Three seconds left. And it's true. And with that, we've come to the end of the quiz. Congratulations to all the winners. Again, as a reminder, please contact us via Instagram direct message to claim your prizes. We finally have come to the end of the session today. Thank you so much, Ambassador Lambert, for your valuable time. On behalf of FPCI, I would also like to extend our gratitude to the Embassy of the Netherlands in Jakarta, the delegation of the European Union Indonesia, and to all the audience on YouTube who have participated today. Since I still see Ambassador Lambert Grijns on screen, Ambassador, perhaps you would like to say some remarks as your closing statement to the audiences?
Well, first of all, thank you very much. I really would like to congratulate. I only saw the number, but the one who had 7 out of 8 questions good, that was remarkable. Even I wouldn't know all the answers. So that was very well done. Congratulations to that person. I don't know who it is, but congratulations. But also the number 2 and number 3, equally very, very well done. And thank you also for having this quiz. Again, after COVID, please come to the Netherlands because for studies or for work or as a tourist, we're a lovely country. We love Indonesians. We have wonderful Indonesian food in the Netherlands, so you don't need to be afraid of not having good food. And even in winter, you can eat salju with ketchup. Maybe that's when we have snow. So you're all most welcome to the Netherlands. And if you cannot make it to the Netherlands, come to see us at the embassy. We hope to be fully open again at the second half of this year. Thanks so much for having me in your program. I love Indonesia. I love FPCI. Once again, thanks so much. Bye.
Thank you, Ambassador. Goodbye. Lastly, I would like to remind everyone that tomorrow we will have the last session of the Ask Ambassador Anything with His Excellency Vincent Piquet, the Ambassador of the European Union to Indonesia at 10 a.m. I know tomorrow is Saturday, but you better not miss tomorrow's closing day. For more information and to register, please visit bit.ly/EuroVirtualTalks. Thank you, and we hope to see you at our future events. See you and happy Europe Day. Thank you, Ambassador. It's really a great session with you. Thank you, Ambassador. Oh, okay. Udah ya? Hello.